Now, in the last couple of hours, a lot has happened in the Iran-Israel conflict. Iran has launched multiple missiles on Israel as alarms sounded across the country and civilians were rushed to the shelter. Iran said the attack on Israel was a response to the killings of God's commander and other leaders of Hezbollah. 3 Israeli military bases were targeted in Tel Aviv. It also vowed retaliation against Iran. At place and time we decide is what Israel has to say after this attack. The Israeli military said that its air force would continue to strike powerfully across the Middle East during the night after Iran attacked Israel with scores of missiles. Israeli Prime Minister said Iran's missile attack on Israel failed and vowed retaliation. He also said, and I quote, "Iran made a big mistake tonight and it will pay for it." He said, and I quote further, "The regime in Iran does not understand our determination to defend ourselves and our determination to retaliate against our enemies." The Iran Guards, meanwhile, threatened crushing attacks if Israel responded to the missile attack. Meanwhile, the Pentagon, US, said on Tuesday that 2 US Navy destroyers fired about a dozen interceptors against Iranian missiles aimed at Israel. A Pentagon spokesperson told reporters that no other US military assets were used to shoot down the missiles which were all fired from inside Iran. Iran's armed forces have warned against any direct military intervention in support of Israel in response to Iran's missile attack. Earlier, the Israel military had announced that any ballistic missile strike from Iran was expected to be widespread and told the public to shelter in safe rooms in the event of an attack, which happened last night. And in the visuals, you can see bright flashes in the skies, and several of the missiles were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome. The firing of missiles came after Israeli troops launched ground raids into Lebanon in the biggest escalation of regional warfare since fighting erupted in Gaza a year ago. What Israeli Prime Minister had to say about the missile attack? Listen in.
איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו, אלה שלא מבינים זאת. הם יבינו. נעמוד בכלל שקבענו. מי שתוקף אותנו, אנחנו תוקפים אותו. זה נכון בכל מקום שאנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע. זה נכון ליהודה ושומרון, זה נכון לעזה, ללבנון, לתימן, לסוריה, וזה נכון גם לאיראן. אנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע.
At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and U.S. military. It's also a testament to intensive planning between the United States and Israel to anticipate and defend against the brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
Well, the Israeli Defense Force says around 180 ballistic missiles were fired from Iran towards Israel during this major wave of attacks. We know that emergency service alerts were sent out very quickly to people's mobile phones, telling them to get into their shelter and to remain there, as 3 or 4 major waves of attacks took place, with multiple messages coming up on people's phones informing them of the locations. The Israeli Defense Force says there were some impacts, including here in Tel Aviv, where we saw flashes of light as some of those missiles landed, and also large explosions ringing out across the city. But the latest information we have is that there were no Israeli casualties in all of this, and they are putting that down to the fact that around 10 million people across this country heeded that warning and remained in the shelter as this attack took place. We are also hearing from the United States that they worked closely with their Israeli counterparts to try and intercept as many of these missiles as they could. We understand 2 US warships took part, as well as fighter jets in the sky, intercepting them as they arrived. Right now, the big question remains around what will happen next. Certainly many of the signals that we are hearing out of the Israeli Defense Force is that some sort of response is coming. We have a statement which I can read to you just briefly saying Iran's attack is a severe and dangerous escalation, according to the IDF, and there will be consequences. We will respond wherever, whenever, and however we choose, in accordance with the directive of the government of Israel. A clear sign there that Israel does plan to respond directly against Iran for this ballistic missile attack, and that of course then throws open the very concerning question around whether this causes a wider war right across West Asia. In Tel Aviv, Trent Murray, NDTV.
My colleague Mohammad Ghazali is also joining me. Ghazali, a very good morning to you. Bring us up to the speed how damaging this attack by Iran on Israel was. We'll try and reconnect with Mohammad Ghazali. He has been covering this issue and knows a thing about this, what happened after Iran launched a missile attack on Israel. Remember, almost 200 missiles were targeted on Israel by Iran. This as they vowed attack and revenge on Israel after they killed Hezbollah commanders. My colleague Mohammad Ghazali is back with us. Ghazali, tell us and bring us up to the speed how damaging this attack was by Iran on Israel. With our colleague Mohammad Ghazali, but we'll try and reconnect with him. Meanwhile, let's take a look at what the world has to say about this Iran and Israel attack and conflict that is emerging in the Middle East. UK condemns Iran's attack on Israel. Russia even in fact went on and said Biden's complete failure in Middle East has resulted in this attack. Donald Trump has also reacted and said that look at the world today, look at the missiles flying right now in the Middle East. This is what has happened as the US president is to be blamed. That's what the competitor had to say. Now, after this, Germany has also demanded that Iran end its missile attack on Israel. Now, after this, the world has reacted. The former Israeli Prime Minister has also questioned the United Nations, saying that they should now condemn Iran for its attack. Meanwhile, Israel has vowed retaliation and said that it will not hesitate, but it will decide its own time and place where and when to retaliate to this unprecedented attack by Iran on Israel. There were bright flashes in the sky and lots of missiles were launched by Iran. Iron Dome, which intercepted several missiles, was at stretch after almost 200 missiles were fired from Iran's side. Now, US also helped in this for Israel as they stood by and said that Israel has the right to defend itself and attack again. Let's listen into what Biden had to say about this Israel and Iran conflict. Listen in.
At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and the U.S. military. It's also a testament to intensive planning between the United States and Israel to anticipate and defend against the brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו. אלה שלא מבינים זאת, הם יבינו. נעמוד בכלל שקבענו. מי שתוקף אותנו, אנחנו תוקפים אותו. זה נכון בכל מקום כשאנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע. זה נכון ליהודה ושומרון, זה נכון לעזה, ללבנון, לתימן, לסוריה, וזה נכון גם לאיראן. אנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע